All right, today we are on day 6 of ACT Prep Unit 1 with Pre-Algebra 1 topics. Today we're going to talk about square roots, exponents, and scientific notation. All right, for square roots, the square root of a number multiplied by itself equals the numbers. This symbol means the square root of 64. This is actually called a radical symbol. If there's no number there, it's a square root, but these are radicals. We have cube roots, we have fourth roots, we have fifth roots. You have any kind of root you want. These are called radicals. When there's no raw number written in that little hole there, it's a 2, which means square root. Okay, the square root of 64 is 8 because 8 times itself equals 64. Okay, a square root may be a whole number. The numbers with whole number square roots are called perfect squares. They are, the square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of 16 is 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, 3 times 3 is 9, 2 times 2 is 4, get it? Okay, those are all your perfect ones that come out nice and whole. You should probably know those by now. All right, if you have a decimal, the square root of 1.44 is 1.2 because 1.2 times itself is 1.44. Okay, you can use the square root key. On a TI-84 graphing calculator, your square root symbol is right here. So it's blue, so you hit your second key and then your x squared key to get the square root symbol. Okay? All right, exponents. An exponent shows repeated factors. This is called a power, okay? And it has a base of 3 and an exponent of 4. And what that says is to make 4 copies of 3 and multiply them together. And so 3 to the 4th would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which equals 81. Another way of writing a square root is to use a fractional exponent, and that is x to the 1/2. Okay, there's a rule that says you can convert exponents to radicals, and you take whatever number's on the bottom and you put it here, and then you take this to whatever's there and you put it on the inside. So when I have 81 to the 1/2, what that really says is the square root of 81, which is 9. 3.61 to the 1/2 is really the square root of 3.61, which is 1.9. Another thing you should remember is that anything raised to the 0 degree is 1. Okay, anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. All right, negative exponents shows fractions and decimals. If you have a negative exponent, there's a law that says, as far as being in simplified form, you can't have a negative exponent in your answer. So to get rid of a negative exponent, you basically move floors. Okay, so if I have x to the negative n, to make that positive, I put it on the bottom, and then the n turns to a positive n. So in this example, I have 11 to the negative first. That's going to be 1 over 11 to the first. 4 to the negative 2 is 1 over 4 squared, which is 1 over 16. 10 to the negative first would be 1 over 10 to the positive first, which is 1/10. 10 to the negative second would be 1 over 10 squared, which is 1 over 100, which would be 0.01 as a decimal, and so on and so forth. Okay? To get your caret key, or your exponent key, we use the caret key right here. Okay, so if I was typing this in, I would do 4 caret negative 2. And it would give me, it would actually give me the decimal equivalent of this. But you can do math, enter, enter, and that will turn it back into a fraction for you. So, the next thing we're talking about is scientific notation. When you write a number, a positive number in scientific notation, you multiply a decimal between 1 and 10 by a power of 10. So, for 6,728, the rule for scientific notation is the first non-zero digit, after the first non-zero digit, you want to put a decimal there. For scientific notation, that's where the decimal belongs. So I put it there, which would be 6.728, and then I multiply by some power of 10 that will take me back to where it was. It was here. I moved it 1, 2, 3 places to the left. So to put it back where it should be, would be 3 places to the right. Okay? The way they're explaining it is you move the decimal 3 places left, which means you do the opposite, which is going to make your exponent positive. Here, to move it, you would move it right after the 5 because that's the first non-zero digit. So you'd put the decimal there, and then that would be times 10 to the negative second, because you'd have to move, to get back to where it was, you'd have to move 2 places to the left. And they're saying because you moved right to put it where it goes, right is actually negative and left is actually positive. Whichever way you want to remember it. Alright, so you try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, so it says light travels about 186,756 miles in 1 second. Which of the following shows about how far light travels in 100 seconds? So the first thing I did was I had to take the number and multiply by 100, which gave me this number. 186755600. The decimal right now is at the end of the number. I want to put it right here. So I do 1.86756, and then I'm going to put times 10. To put it back where it was, I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So it would be 10 to the 7. Okay? Alright, so we're writing the value. On these guys, I just use a calculator. I mean, you can use your brain if you want. Some of them are pretty easy to do in your head. The square root of 400 is going to be 20, but again, use your calculator. Just make sure you're typing very carefully. Okay, the square root of 0.25 would be 0.5. Square root of 324 is 18. Square root of 2.89 is 1.7. When you do exponents, you use your caret key. I do 10 caret 3 is 1,000. 4 caret 3 is 64, because 4 times 4 times 4, this is 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, anything to the 0 degree is 1. You can type it in a calculator to check, but it is. When you do these, I mean, yes, this means the square root of 49, which is 7. But let's say that you just go blank. Your calculator will work. Just make sure when you type, you're going to type 49 caret parentheses 1 divided by 2. If you don't do these in parentheses, it's going to raise 49 to the first degree and then divide it by 2, which would give you 24.5. Okay, so be careful. When your exponent's a fraction, you've got to put it in parentheses. Okay, 2 to the negative first, again, by hand, that's going to be 1 over 2 to the first, which is 1/2, or 0.5. But again, on your calculator, you type 2 caret negative 1, and hit enter, it tells you 0.5. And if you want a fraction, math and enter that, but of course you should know 0.5 is 1/2. Again, by hand, 6 to the negative second would be 1 over 6 to the second, positive 2, which would be 1 over 36. If you type it in the calculator, 6 caret negative 2, 1 divided by 36 is 0.0277778. If again, you turn it back into a fraction by hitting the math key and then enter twice, it gives you the 136. Okay, this is going to be 1 over 10 to the third, which is going to be 1 over 1,000. And if I type it in the calculator, I've got 10 caret negative 3, it's 0.001, which if I turn it into a fraction, there's the 1 over 1,000. 12, 16 to the 1/2, that's the square root of 16, which would be 4, but again, your calculator will give you the same answer as long as you put that fraction in in parentheses. Okay, so we're going to write each number in scientific notation. If you have a TI-84, what's neat about it is you can go to hit your mode key, and it should, in normal mode, everything on this side is black. When you want to go to scientific notation, arrow this over and hit enter on top of scientific and turn it black, and that will make your numbers go to scientific notation. Then all you do is just type the number in and hit enter. Type the number in and hit enter, and it will tell you, it gives you this E thing. Well, that's what tells you your exponent is. So this number, 2,325,000,000, Okay, I want the decimal to be there, which they put it there, is 2.325. You drop the zeros, and that's going to be times 10 to the 9. Okay, because if I put it there, to go back to where it was would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, by hand on this one, it would go right there, so that would make it 1.75, and it would be 2 places left, so that would be times 10 to the negative second. Or, type it in the calculator, 0.0175, and hit enter, and there's your 1.75 e negative 2. That tells you your exponent. 2.75 is in scientific notation. Well, I mean, other than you have to put times 10 to the 0, because the decimal's already where it's at, so you don't have to move it anytime. But this would be in scientific notation. Okay? And even if you type it on the calculator, see it says E0, that just means your exponent on 10 is going to be 0. Okay, there's where the decimal is, there's where I want it, so that's going to be 5.659. To go back to where it was would be 1, 2, 3 places to the right. Or, type it in the calculator and get your E number, which tells you your exponent. Okay, this is 0.062. The decimal should be there for scientific, so 6.2. To go back would be 2 places left. Or, type it in the calculator, and there you go. And same with the rest of them. Just again, that's where it is at the end. Where it should be is the circle. So 5.079 times 10 to go back to where it was. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. This one's going to be, needs to be there. So 2.57 times 10. To put it back would be 1, 2, 3 left. It is at the end. It needs to be there. So it'd be 6.89459 times 10 to go back to where it was is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if I check them on the calculator, there you go. Bob's your uncle. Alright, this one they're giving me in scientific notation, and they want me to write it as a whole number or decimal. Well, this says 4.2 times 10 to the 5th. Which means move that decimal 5 times to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or, go back to normal, change your mode back to normal, and type it in and hit enter, and it'll give you the same thing. 5.01 times 10 to the 3, 1, 2, 3, fill it in, would be 5010. Check it, and there you go. This, I would move it 2 places left, so that's going to be 0.0235. Check it. This says 2 places to the right, fill in the 0, that's going to make 660. Check it. This says move 3 places left, 1, 2, 3, fill in the circle, so 0.00909. Check it. Yeah. This says 4 places to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 67,000. Check it. Yeah. This says 4 places left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 0.000405. Check it. I would kept it in scientific notation. And then this one, 4 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fill that in. Is 19000. Check it. There we go. Alright, you try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 2.4. Okay, it says the area of a square is 5.76 square inches. Area of a square is length times width. But in a square, length and width are equal. So whatever this is, this has to be. So my area equals x squared. Well, they told me what the area is. They told me the area is 5.76. That equals x squared. Now solve for x, and you'll know the side of the length. To kill a square, you take the square root of both sides. When I type in the square root of 5.76, I get 2.4. Okay? Try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 7. Okay, so it says, which of the following numbers multiplied by itself 4 times equals 2401? You could do this a couple of ways. They're asking you what number raised to the 4th degree is 2401. Well, again, to get the answer, I'm trying to figure out the question mark. To kill a 4th degree, you take a 4th root. To type that in the calculator, you're going to type a 4, then you're going to hit your math key and go down to choice 5. You see how that's got an X there? When you type the 4, you're telling it X equals 4, the root equals 4. So when you type 4 math 5, it'll give you this 4, and then I think it opens parentheses. My calculator's a little different. I think yours will open parentheses. Or no, I think it puts a 4 and then a root and then a parentheses, and you would type in 2401 and hit enter, and you get 7. But let's say that you didn't remember to do that. Well, it's a multiple choice situation. So if you didn't remember, if this doesn't make sense to you, you just check them. 6 to the 4th, 7 to the 4th, 8 to the 4th, 9 to the 4th, 10 to the 4th. The one that equals 2401 is 7 to the 4th. So the 7 times itself 4 times is 2401. Okay, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And you should get 10 to the negative 7. Here's the number, and it says, which of the following correctly represents that measurement? Well, you would move the decimal behind the first non-zero digit, which would be that one. So that's 1.0, just 1, times 10 to put it back where it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times to the left. And then they just didn't write the 1 times that, because 1 times anything is itself. Okay, oops. Try this one, except for apparently I just gave you the answer there. When you type that in, okay, it didn't tell you how to round, but it says which is the closest approximation. Well, if they rounded to the 10th place, so if I rounded to the 10th, that 7 would bump it up to a 9. Okay, so that one's the closest. Come on. Oh, crap, sorry. Went through another one fast. Sorry, hopefully you hit pause and did that one. It says it's about 6 billion kilometers from Earth to Pluto. Which of the following choices correctly represents that distance? 6 billion is 6 with 9 zeros. So I would want my decimal right there, which gives me 6 times 10. Moving it back, I would have to go, or I mean, there's where it is. I want it right there. To move it back, I would have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times to the right. Okay. Alright, and we are done with day 6. I will see you for day 7.